Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you.
So we were just discussing when our last episode was, and I was about to tell you.
Was it the IAS one?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, it was. It was July 15th, and we talked about Amber, Ayaz, and Melissa Fu, which still blows my mind, by the way.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Because what happened to that's just the craziest thing.
I don't know. But then that's also like, what happened to this person?
Right? What happened to everybody I've discussed on my podcast? That is the goal of these, is to speculate on what happened. But anyway, should we dive into this case or what?
Yes, we should.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for doing this with me. Yeah. So this is a case that I found, as you know, I was just scrolling through the Charlie Project. Which, are you familiar with the Charlie Project?
No.
Okay, a lot of people in the true crime community are, but it's a database with thousands of missing persons cases, like documented on their site. It's like an archive. So I was searching through, and at the time this episode airs on Friday the 21st, this will be the 24th anniversary of this person's disappearance.
Whoa.
So I was like, this is perfect to do an episode on, and it's a very interesting story.
Yeah.
I found it to be very interesting. So I can go ahead and get into the details and we can discuss it.
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So on August 25th, 1998, a United Airlines flight arrived at Washington Dulles International Airport. Is it Dulles or Dulles?
I think it's Dulles.
Dulles. Washington Dulles International Airport in Virginia from Paris, France. Mm-hmm. So a man emerged from the gate accompanied by a young girl. Together, the pair made their way through the line for immigration, where officials asked them for their purpose for entering the United States. The man identified himself as Klaharn Chaichana, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but I'm doing the best that I can. He was a citizen of Thailand, and he said that the child that was accompanying him was his niece, and also a manager in the silk area of his business. It's interesting that this girl appeared to be a child, and she was also a manager in his alleged business.
I was wondering about that.
So, I mean, there's that. But anyway, so there's this guy, he gets off a flight from Europe with this girl, a young girl, and says that she's a manager in part of his business. Okay. So already likely suspicious.
Yeah.
The real red flags came when authorities attempted to communicate with the young girl. She was supposedly Thai because this guy was Thai, and said that she was his niece, but she could not communicate in Thai. They had two Thai translators try to communicate with this girl, and she could not communicate. Mm. So eventually, it was determined that the girl was Chinese. So they summoned a Mandarin translator and called them to attempt to decipher the true identity of who the girl was. It was then that they learned that her name was Wang Yuanxia. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah. Okay. So she told the authorities that she was 12 years old and that she came from Fuzhou, which is the capital of the Fujian province in southeastern China. And evidently, according to the Immigration and Naturalization Service, or the INS, Fuzhou was a major source of human smuggling at the time. Mm-hmm. Yuanxia also stated that she met this guy, Klaharn, 7 days prior, and that her parents had paid him to bring her to America. So, according to an article in the Washington Post, Yuanxia was one of several Chinese nationals who entered the United States illegally at Dulles International Airport in the 6 months prior to her entry. And many of these cases involved high quality Japanese or Thai passports that were forged.
Interesting.
But what separates Yuanxia's case from these is that she used a legitimate Thai passport. It was just altered, and she used that to enter the country. They're not really sure if her case is related to these other ones because of that distinction.
Okay.
Yeah, so in the other cases, it's believed that immigrants smuggled into the country were sent to restaurants or brothels to work as slaves, essentially, which is very dark and depressing.
Yeah.
But according to law enforcement, they didn't seem to believe that Yuanxia's case was related to slavery or extortion. They don't really specify why, but a source close to the investigation said that it did appear that Yuanxia's parents paid a significant amount of money for her smuggling into the United States.
Okay.
So I'm going to pause and let you react because I just said a lot of stuff.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Here's the thing. I just feel like back in the day, when I say back in the day, I mean, I know that was like 98.
Well, now, I mean, it is back in the day.
It is back in the day, though.
It's over 20 years ago.
Right. And like back in the day, I don't want to say like the Asian community because I am more familiar that it is more like relevant with the Chinese community, specifically like in China. And it's kind of like, there is kind of a slight obsession with like wanting their kids, like Chinese parents wanting their kids to live in America because they just feel like they would have a better life here. They have better survivability. They don't have to deal with all the shit happening in China at the time, So I do think that, yes, maybe her parents did pay them, but the guy, but the thing, essentially to like, hopefully that their daughter would have a better life here in the United States. That's my assumption in terms of like them sending their kid out here alone with a random dude. And I know that seems ridiculous, but when I say that there's a slight obsession with that, it's a slight obsession with that. Like if there is any like hope, belief, optimism that this could happen for their kid, they'll make it happen. Even if it costs them a shit ton of money to send their kid overseas alone. So I just wanted to put that out there. But that doesn't mean that who they paid is who this person said they are. Right? Like this very well could, like he very well could have been a smuggler. I don't know. So that's the other part of it. So, it's like the parents may have good intentions with them sending their kid here, but that doesn't mean that they trusted the right person to do that. So
my first reaction to that is that that's incredibly sad.
It is.
As a parent, in these scenarios, do the parents ever see their child again? Or they hope that their child will go on to live a better life and then hopefully one day they'll be reunited and things will be better? Is that the kind of the mindset?
That is kind of the mindset. And the other part of it is that they hope that, it's kind of like, if there's any chance that they can have anyone come here and legitimately get a US citizenship, they will take that route. So my guess, it's a guess, right? Just throwing it out there is just a guess. But my guess, based on my understanding of all of that stuff, is that they were hoping to send their daughter to the States. It's a lot easier for kids to become US citizens if they have a guardian or whoever is taking care of them who's already a US citizen. So then when that happens, it'll be easier for her after she grows up to bring her parents over because she's already a US citizen at that point. So that is my assumption on that, right? Like It is very sad that some families do have to separate for a period of time for that to happen. But it's a thing. It's definitely happened. For sure.
Very sad. But yeah, so nevertheless, the source close to the investigation said it did appear that the family paid significant amount of money to send her to the US. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, this guy that smuggled her into the country, Klaharn, if I'm saying it right, he told authorities that a man by the name of Chan Chai provided him with plane and train tickets from Brussels, Belgium, to Paris, and then to Washington, D.C., and that he met Yuanxia in Bangkok and was given the directions to deliver her specifically to a Holiday Inn at 15th Street and Rhode Island Avenue, Northwest in Washington, D.C. So that's what he told authorities. The circumstances surrounding the smuggling of Yuanxia are obviously unclear, but one thing was clear, that Klaharn Chechina, who smuggled her into the country, broke the law. So he was arrested, and he later pleaded guilty to aiding and abetting the use of an altered passport. And he was sentenced to 4 months in jail.
That's it? Okay.
As far as I can tell, yeah. According to court records, he was sentenced to 4 months in jail. Now, I don't know how much time he actually served, but this was in 1998. So, yeah, I'm assuming he did his 4 months. But so the fate of Yuanxia, on the other hand, is far less clear-cut because, as I alluded to in the beginning, 24 years ago today, on October 21st, when this airs, it'll be 24 years since Yuanxia vanished. So that's less than 2 months after she arrived in the United States illegally, she would disappear.
Okay.
So let's go to after her smuggler was arrested. So Yuanxia, the fate of her was in the hands of the Alexandria Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court. So it was there that a judge ordered that she be sent to a foster home while officials, quote, figured out what to do with her. Mm-hmm. And that's the exact quote.
Oh my God.
Which is, it's kind of sad, you know, because I'm just thinking like, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, it's all like they kind of make it seem like she's a nuisance. Like she's just this like
a nuisance or like a piece of property or something.
Yeah. Like what? Oh my God. Anyway.
Which I understand the circumstances, you know, something needs to happen.
Right.
She's obviously a minor.
Right.
But just the way she's described, not the way she's described, but the way she is, like just her story. Mm-hmm. It starts off as she's being smuggled into the U.S. Like she's a piece of property or something.
Right.
And that then the courts need to decide what happens with her. It's kind of sad just thinking like this is a human being, you know?
Right.
But anyway, so the courts, her fate was in the hands of the courts. A judge ordered that she be sent to a foster home. So apparently this foster care arrangement would be temporary until it was determined whether she would either A, stay permanently in the United States or B, be deported back to China.
It's just interesting because I don't know why they didn't just deport her right away, knowing that she wasn't in the States legally.
Well, yeah, that's true. But I mean, I guess as a child.
Oh, there's different.
Well, maybe they needed to determine like what her home life. I honestly don't know. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe they needed to determine like, does she have family? Like, what's her situation? Right. I don't know. That's just my guess.
Okay.
So in early September, a couple by the name of Robert and Carolyn Conway agreed to take Yuanxia into their home to live with them. And they also had 3 other foster children.
Oh.
So they agreed to take her in. Despite telling officials she was 12 years old, her new parents estimated that she could be around 14 or 15. And I guess this was based on her height and weight. She was 5'6",
Oh,
and she was about 120 pounds, a little less.
mhm.
So they thought maybe she could be 14 or 15.
Yeah.
So for her first 3 weeks at her new home, she was left with a Mandarin speaking babysitter during the day,
Oh, okay.
because obviously this couple that adopted her, or not adopted, but were fostering her, they didn't speak Mandarin. But her foster mother, Carolyn, she apparently printed out like a list of Chinese words and phrases to help her communicate with her.
Wow.
She was said to get along really well with her new family, and she would help with cooking in the evening.
Oh.
Eventually, after those first 3 weeks, they enrolled her in 7th grade at Holmes Middle School. She was the only Mandarin speaking student at the school, but there was one teacher who spoke Mandarin who would occasionally check in with her and see how she was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm just thinking this poor girl must have been so incredibly lonely.
Yeah.
Being in a foreign country at such a young age,
Right.
and not being able to communicate. It must have been so scary for her.
Yeah.
I mean,
And like, you know, feeling abandoned in a way, right? Because despite their good intentions, I mean, the fact is still they sent her to a different country. So in some ways, like, you know, it doesn't feel great regardless of what the intentions are.
Yuanxia allegedly told her foster parents, and again, I know there was a language barrier, so I'm not sure how this was communicated, but she allegedly told them that she had argued with her parents in China and they withdrew her from school. They told her that summer, I guess, before she arrived in the United States, that she would be going to America to live with an aunt.
Okay.
So that's what she communicated to them. Let's get to the day that she disappeared. Okay. As I said, it was October 21st, 1998. She took the bus to school. And from what I understand, this was like a city or a county bus. It wasn't like a school bus.
Oh.
But she took a bus home with her foster sister, one of her foster sisters, on school days. But for reasons that aren't really specified anywhere that I could find, on October 21st, she took a cab home, on October 21st, she took the bus home by herself.
Okay.
She had a doctor's appointment that day, and there was a cab waiting for her at her foster home to take her to the doctor's appointment. And the cab was there at 3:30 p.m. and she was not home. She was last seen getting off of this bus around 3 p.m. So it sounds like somebody actually did see her get off the bus around 3 o'clock, but she never arrived home and she never got the cab to the doctor's appointment, never showed up for the appointment. That's basically it, honestly. 24 years later, she's never been seen again.
Oh my God.
I know.
So she got off the bus. She never went to her doctor's appointment where a cab was ordered for her, essentially.
Yeah, and I'm unclear exactly how far from where the bus let her off, where she actually lived. But the bus supposedly dropped her off near Lincolnia Road and Deming Avenue in the Lincolnia area of Virginia, which is the neighborhood she lived in. Now, her foster family says she was unfamiliar with the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But if she's walking home from the bus, she has to be somewhat familiar with the route that she needs to walk home.
Right. Like I would think that she would know the exact route home to the bus and then bus back home.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I mean.
So we essentially have a half an hour from the time she's seen getting off the bus to the time the cab shows up at her foster home at 3:30. Yeah. So she's not there when the cab shows up, and she never makes it to her appointment. She never returned to her foster home, and she's never been heard from again.
Oh.
An extensive search is conducted. They obviously don't find her. Her foster family didn't speak Mandarin. They said that it seemed like she was happy. It seemed like she was content in her situation, but they also admitted that they didn't know her as well because of the language barrier.
Right.
So they couldn't really definitively tell police if she was someone who would run away.
Right.
They didn't think so because she seemed happy, but at the same time, they'd only lived with this girl for how long? And so,
Right.
yeah, she'd only lived with them for 6 weeks.
Right.
Before she vanished. So I have a lot of questions about this.
Naturally.
Let me read to you on her missing persons file
Okay.
what this says, because it raises even more questions, okay? In November 2008, 10 years after her disappearance, investigators said that they thought that Yuanxia could be in the Kansas City, Missouri area. This information was never confirmed, however. Police believe Yuan either ran away to avoid potential deportation to China, or she was abducted, possibly by one of the people who smuggled her into the country. If the latter is the case, Yuanxia may be forced to work for her abductors. So that's what her missing persons file says on Charlie Project, which is the website, the database I mentioned.
What made them think that she was in, what was it, Kansas City?
Exactly. That's the $1 million question. It's never specified in anywhere that I could find what makes them believe she's there.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. And this was, what year was this? You said 10 years afterwards?
10 years afterwards, yeah.
Yeah,
so I'm...
Because it's like, it's not... It's not like, well, I don't know. I don't know the Asian population in Kansas City, so I can't really say. But I mean, it wouldn't be a case where it's like, oh, there's an Asian person. Like, it's got to be this person. You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, how would they have thought that?
Well, just to also let you know, it is just over 1,000 miles from Lincolnia, Virginia, which is where her foster family was, to Kansas City, Missouri. So we're talking about a significant trip across the country here.
Yeah.
This isn't just like next door.
Right.
And it's too random of a place.
Yeah. No
for them to just say, oh, yeah, she might be there, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I wish we had more information on that one. But yeah, I definitely think that we have the same questions about that in particular.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what my questions are and then we can discuss. Does that work?
Yeah.
So there's obviously a few theories here.
Mm-hmm.
One, she could have run away because she was unhappy, feeling lonely. She didn't want to get abducted, or she didn't want to get deported, which was a possibility, it sounds like, based on what the court said, that this was a temporary arrangement until they could figure out what was going on. So she could have run away. That's one. Two, she could have been abducted by somebody related to, it could be related to her illegal entry into the country. Mm-hmm. Whether whoever she was supposed to be delivered to or somebody involved in whatever reason she was coming over to the US. And I have more questions about that too. Like, how would they know where she was at what time?
Yep.
And three, she could have been abducted by a random stranger. And the whole fact that she was in the country illegally is unrelated. So like those are the three possibilities.
Yeah, like it could just be like a really crazy coincidence.
Yeah. But I have a question about this guy that smuggled her into the United States. Okay. He tells authorities that he's supposed to deliver her to a Holiday Inn at 15th Street and Rhode Island Avenue, Northwest in Washington, D.C. Okay, that's very specific. Why? Who is that? Who is there?
Well, okay. Could whoever's there, could it be her aunt that she was supposed to to meet or whatever her parents had said?
It could have been, yeah.
I mean, did they ever go to the hotel to check?
That's what I don't know. I can't find any information. You would think that would be something they would check out.
I feel like there's one of a couple things probably. I feel like it was not mentioned because they didn't check it.
You don't think they checked that?
No, because wouldn't you think that if they did check it, they would actually have said something because that's a piece of evidence that they had looked into?
Okay, but maybe I sound naive here, but why wouldn't they check it?
Why would they?
Why would they not check it?
Yeah.
It seems easily checkable.
Exactly.
Well, okay. Let's think about this though. At the time she's smuggled into the country, she's caught with her smuggler. At that stage, it's just a illegal entry. It's not her disappearance. She disappears later.
Right.
So they have no way of knowing at that time she's going to disappear. So maybe they thought, well, it doesn't matter who you're going to meet. You are breaking the law.
Yep.
You're arrested and you're in foster care. This is what we do. Maybe they don't investigate that deep.
Well, that makes sense. Yes, that makes sense. But at the same time, I mean, how would they know that it wasn't a trafficking ring sort of a thing? It's kind of like you have this address that you could literally just go and check, but you don't go and do that. You don't just radio someone hey, can we have, because cops, they have those radios, and I'm saying
no, I know.
But it's dispatchers could just, going to be hey, can someone nearby just check this place out in this room? I mean, why would that be so hard?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. That's why there's a lot of missing pieces here. They probably know more than they're releasing.
Oh.
Which is sometimes the case and a lot of times the case.
Well, okay, so I had a comment.
Yes, go ahead, please.
She could have ran away, and that's crossed my mind too.
Mm-hmm.
That she might have ran away because she didn't want to be deported. But I mean, she's between 12 to 14, 15 maybe?
Mm-hmm. That's what they think anyway.
She had an argument with her parents about being here. So she doesn't even want to be here. Why would she not want to be deported?
Well, the exact quote is from the Washington Post article. Mm-hmm. And it says, Yuanxia told her foster parents she had argued with her parents in China after they withdrew her from school. This summer, which this is in 1998.
Right.
This summer, her parents told their only child she would be going to America to live with an aunt.
Right.
That's all it says.
Right.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You're saying it sounds like this trip was not voluntary.
No, exactly. She doesn't really want to be here to do this and live with a random, person.
Right.
In a different country. She wasn't gung-ho about it. So why would she not want to be deported? It's she gets to go back home.
Yeah, that's a good point. So the other theory is that, let's say whoever she was meeting at this hotel, whether it really was a relative, she could be with that person.
But how would she contact with them?
That's what I don't get. It's 1998. People don't have a cell phone in 1998. I mean, if they do, it's really uncommon. Certainly she doesn't probably have one.
1998. I'm trying to think.
We were 9 years old.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We were 9 years old. She was, yeah.
Well, cell phones were a thing back then. Maybe not for a 12-year-old.
Were they?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh, Megan, are you joking?
Yeah, it's 1998, dude.
I mean, I know it's been a while, but it's not been that long of a while.
Oh, geez. I Googled when were cell phones invented? April 3rd, 1973. It weighed 2.5 pounds.
Jesus.
Okay, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, they were invented. But how many people do you know had a cell phone in 1998? I certainly didn't. I don't think my parents had a cell phone in 1998.
Oh, well, Megan, you didn't have a cell phone because you were 9.
True. I didn't get my first cell phone until I was 16.
Right.
But the point is, it's not like today where you see everybody's got a phone.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
No, that part's true, for sure.
Either way, it's like if she's seen getting off the bus, we have a very narrow window of time, okay, where she could have disappeared. If a cab's waiting for her at 3:30, she's not there. But she's seen by somebody getting off the bus at 3. There's a half an hour between where the bus drops her off and her home that something happens.
Well, do we know how? Well, I guess it just depends on the route that she takes to go home, which I'm assuming is the same route every day because she's not familiar with the area, right? Or we don't think she's familiar with the area. Who knows?
Right. And another question I have is, why was she alone on that particular day?
Yeah.
Was that a coincidence, or was she alone some of the time and not all of the time? Yeah, all it says is let's see, it says she would typically take the school bus home with one of her foster sisters, arriving home at 3:10 p.m. Okay, so on the day of her disappearance, however, she took the bus home alone. So my question there is, where was her foster sister that day?
Right, exactly.
You know, like, where was her foster sister? Why was she alone that particular day? Is that just a coincidence, or did that happen once in a while? Like her sister was doing something else.
Right. And like the foster parents didn't provide more of like an explanation why that specific day was so special.
Not that I could see, but I will tell you something that I saw in the Washington Post article.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was October 23rd, 1998. This article was written. So this is about what? Oh, this was 2 days after she disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So very fresh still. In an interview yesterday, Robert Conway, her foster father, described the girl's disappearance as, quote, a nightmare. Incha, as the family knew her, apparently her nickname was Incha, lived in their Lincolnia area home for 6 weeks. Quote, I had been warned that the Chinese mafia might be looking for her, Conway said. Can I ask you what the hell the Chinese mafia is? What does that mean?
Like a group of bad guys who are Chinese.
Well, what do they want her for?
I don't know. Well,
that seems like a random quote from her foster father.
That, and like, where did he get the information from? How was he contacted that the Chinese mafia might, what was it? Might want her, or might whatever.
That's what I don't understand. It just says, it talks about how, like I mentioned earlier, that a lot of the cases, so this guy, Klaharn China, he's not the first person to be arrested at Dulles Airport for smuggling people.
Uh-huh.
Apparently it had happened several times. And these cases involved like high quality forged Japanese or Thai passports.
Right.
And what it says, Yuanxia, however, used a real Thai passport that had been altered. So her case appears to be different. And then it says why she was smuggled here remains a mystery, officials said. Then it says, in an interview yesterday, Robert Conway, her foster father, described the girl's disappearance as, quote, a nightmare. Incha, as the family knew her, had lived in their Lincolnia area home for 6 weeks. Quote, I had been warned that the Chinese mafia might be looking for her, Conway said. And then it goes into how this guy, Claharn, brought her to the airport from Paris, and what he told the airport officials that he was like her niece and working as a manager in his business. And then obviously she can't communicate with the Thai interpreters. That statement really stuck out to me because it's like, what? What are you even talking about?
Dude, I just feel like there's not, not to shit on people who have worked on this or, reporters, whoever, but it's like, I feel like unless they did ask more questions, but they just didn't share it, I'm assuming that they didn't ask those questions, because why else would we not have that information? Because my biggest question is, where the hell did you get this warning from? And then also, like, I guess in my head, it's like, oh, well, maybe he got like a letter or like a phone call or something. Did he not provide that information to the police? Just doesn't make any sense.
You're thinking of it different than I did, because when I read that, I'm like, did the police say that?
What?
Like, be careful, like, we don't know what's going on with this girl. Maybe, I have no idea. In conclusion, but that I didn't read it as like somebody like reached out to him besides the police. I read it like maybe the officials said that. But I have no clue, and I would love to know what that's about, because it's just such an odd statement to me. Like,
it is really odd. It's really odd. And it's odd that there's no clarification.
The Washington Post article, just to go back to that, there was a good quote at the end of the article from her attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so her attorney is Ken Labowitz. Ken Labowitz. And he says he's concerned, obviously. Quote, she had no other place to go, and she's a long way from home with no possible way to get back, he said. My fear is we will never know what happened to this child. It's very chilling. That's kind of all I really have for this case. I think it's really compelling, because here we have the story of this girl who came to the United States in such a, I don't want to say strange, because it sounded like this was kind of common, but like, she has this story where she's smuggled into the country, and then she goes to foster care, and then she vanishes. It's like, is that a coincidence?
Right.
Or is this somehow related? My gut tells me it's somehow related.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm leaning towards as well. There's no, it just seems like really there's such a crazy coincidence that on the day that she's supposed to have her doctor's appointment, she goes home taking the bus alone, when usually she would take it with one of her foster sisters. And then on her way home from the bus stop, someone saw her getting off the bus, but no one saw what happened to her. It's also weird that someone saw her walking or getting off the bus, but not seeing her walking towards anywhere else.
Well, I mean, they could have seen her getting off the bus and passing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, nobody knows this. Like, go down the streets in Chicago and pick out any random person.
Yeah.
You're driving by in a car or a bus and you see somebody getting off a bus. Like, are you going to pay attention to what they're doing? Any one person is doing that you don't know?
Right. But that's only from one perspective. There's more than one person in that whole community.
True.
That's why that to me is also weird, because it's like, okay, someone or some people saw her getting off the bus, but no one saw where she walked to. And that's weird to me.
Also, investigators think one of their theories that they think could have happened is that one of the smugglers kidnapped her and is forcing her into work.
Yeah. But how would they know where she was?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Because if
they'd have to know her routine somehow and where she ended up.
Yeah, exactly. It's the where she ended up, because she's, with children, their files are sealed. I thought, right? You can't just go anywhere and be like, oh, I want to look up, if you were younger than 18, like I want to look up Megan. Like you can't just go and do that. Because,
right.
Like there's no way that you can just go and do that. So how would they be able to track her down?
Yeah. That's what gets me too, is that there's such a narrow window of time. And if she was seen getting off the bus, it's very sad.
It is. It is very sad. And it sucks that we don't have more information.
It does suck. Yeah. So there's a lot of unanswered questions. I want to know how far it was. So it said she gets home around 3:10 p.m., right?
Mm-hmm.
So if she's getting off the bus at 3, assuming that was normal for her, then what? It takes her 10 minutes or less to walk from the bus to her house?
Yeah, exactly.
And who saw her on the bus? Was it a random person? And how did they know it was her?
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, how well can a stranger know, like, who anyone is? Like, if I see someone missing, am I going to remember, oh, yeah, I saw that person getting off the bus?
Right, exactly. You said this was, Virginia, 1998. I mean, I guess the other thing is, in that area, you probably don't see a lot of Asian people.
Well, I actually heard where did I read this? I heard that Lincolnia, Virginia is actually the most diverse part of Virginia.
Oh, really?
Now, as of the year 2000, which was 2 years.
Oh, okay.
2 years after her disappearance, 47% white, 18% African American, 0.22% Native American. Did I say African American? 18.82%. Asian, 0.02%. Pacific Islander, 11.48%.
No, I think it's 15% Asian.
What did I say?
0.02.
Oh, sorry. I was reading the wrong thing. All right.
It's because they're squished together.
15% Asian.
Mm-hmm.
And this is 2000. This is 2 years after she disappeared. So we'll call it around the same.
Yeah.
And the total population is, as of 2010, it's 22,000. That's not that many.
No.
But I did read somewhere it's a fairly diverse part of. I looked up the intersection supposedly where she was seen getting off the bus, but I obviously don't know where her foster family lived, so I couldn't map it out. I wanted to map it out.
Right.
I also want to know what happened to the smuggler. I want to trace this back. I want to know, here's another question I have. Like, what do her parents think in China?
Yeah. That was one of the, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was a question I had. Like, do they know? I mean, like, did they tell her parents?
Right.
Did they
say anything?
Yeah. Like, did they try to locate them? Like, what about that?
Did they try to locate them? Did they tell them she was missing? Did they ask about the nature of their relationship?
Right.
Do they have names of relatives in the United States that they can contact, like the supposed aunt, to see if she is with them? But anyway, if Yuanxia was alive today, she would be 36 years old.
Wow.
Probably. Because, I mean, if she was 12 at the time, she disappeared. She was last seen wearing a white t-shirt, blue denim jacket, jeans, and white sneakers. She's an Asian female with black hair, brown eyes. Again, she was about 5'6" and 118 pounds. Her nickname is Incha. Does that mean something in Chinese that you know of?
Not that I know of right now. I can't really place it.
But anyway, the investigating agency is the Fairfax County Police Department, 703-691-2131. But this is a crazy one for sure.
Yeah. Also another one without a lot of information, details, or,
Well, there's missing pieces in there for sure.
Yeah. And like lots of questions that we have that I wish, they had asked or that we had answers to.
Any final thoughts? Like, what do you think happened?
I do wonder if maybe she was abducted. I don't think that it's that crazy of a I do think that it's a crazy coincidence, but I don't think that that's the reason why. I kind of wonder if maybe her disappearance does have to do with like her being smuggled to the States. I mean, how can all of this happen in like less than 2 months?
Yeah, that's true.
Like all of this happened in less than 2 months. I don't know. That just doesn't seem right to me.
It does seem odd.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a crazy coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, stranger things have happened though.
Yeah. Yes. I'm not like totally ruling out that maybe she might have, ran away, but she's 12, 14, 15, whatever, didn't have a place to go, doesn't really have any way of contacting other people, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's true. That we know of, I mean.
Yeah, right. That we know of. Where would she go?
So I just Googled this guy that smuggled her.
Mm-hmm.
The Thai guy. Chai China Klaharn Chai China. I don't know which order the name is in Thai, but I just Googled his name to see if there was any other information about him. And I got this little blurb in the crime and justice section of the Washington Post. And it says a Thai businessman was sentenced yesterday to 4 months in prison for helping to smuggle into this country a Chinese girl who later disappeared from her Fairfax County foster home. Chaichana Klaharn will be deported after his sentence for aiding and abetting the use of an altered passport, U.S. District Judge James C. Kacharis said. After the defendant was stopped at the Dulles International Airport, he admitted accepting money from a smuggling ring to pose as the girl's uncle and said his job was simply to deliver her to a Washington area hotel room. He told officials he did not know Wang Yuanxia's ultimate destination. Prosecutors said during the hearing in Alexandria Federal Court. Police and the FBI have had no luck locating Wang Yuanxia, who was last seen getting off a school bus on October 21st. So
the other information that we had, which was her story that her parents sent her here?
Yes.
Didn't say that her parents spent a lot of money to send her here?
Yes, she said that. According to the articles I read, she told investigators that.
Right. Okay. So, there's a few things here. That could very well be true, but then this Klaharn guy also accepted money from a smuggling ring and wanted to take money from both sides, both her parents and the smugglers, and was going to just deliver her to the smugglers anyway. He could really have been a piece of shit like that.
What do you mean?
Like, her parents, if her story was true, that her parents spent all this money to send her to the States, they entrusted this Klaharn guy with this money, but then Klaharn had a side deal and accepted money from the smuggling ring and was going to just lying to the parents and was just going to deliver her to the smuggling ring anyway.
Oh, because I'm thinking if he accepted money from a smuggling ring, did the parents pay the smuggling ring to get her out? I'm thinking of it as a very naive, like, the parents paid these people and they're paying this guy.
That wouldn't.
And who even is this guy? Like, I want to know about him. Like, what's he doing just smuggling people over here?
There's
like, why him? Who asked him to do it?
There's crazy ass people everywhere. But it's like, but no, I don't see why her parents would give money to the smuggling ring. Like, where would they even, like, you can't just put a posting like in China and be like, I'm looking for a smuggling ring to like deliver my daughter to like the US, that doesn't make, that to me doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And also the fact that she's being delivered to a hotel room, that's sketch to me.
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
Like, I can't believe, honestly, after they sentenced him, I can't believe that they didn't go and check out that hotel anyway.
Should I read this comment?
Yeah.
So I just Googled this, and this is in Reddit. And it's by the user Jupiter Bluff _007. And this user says, several things about this case are majorly suspicious. The smuggler's story of how and when he came to know Yuanxia. Her parents had managed to save a large sum of money in China, which in itself was likely an extremely difficult thing to do, if it's actually true. And then hand the money and their child to someone they just met. This person just happens to be willing to take on this task and able to quickly falsify a passport for her. I realized the fake passport wasn't a very good one, but still, this dude was in China and happened to have a spare Thai passport. Did the authorities find a large sum of money on the smuggler? If not, did they look into where this alleged money was? If the parents truly were wealthy or in a position to be able to save a lot of money over several years, why have they never come to the U.S.? I've heard many stories of parents from various countries sending their children to America for a better life, but the parents usually make their way there eventually. Perhaps I'm just very uninformed on this situation. I realize it could possibly happen all the time, and if done successfully, it would never make headlines. My opinion, based mostly on what I've read and watched about these human smugglers, is that there was little or no money given to this man. If her parents were savvy enough to save a tremendous amount of money in communist China, it's fairly likely that they would have also had a well-laid plan on how she would get to the U.S. and either someone here to help her or enough money and instructions on how to make her way into the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, her age. I think it's definitely possible and likely that Yuanxia was older than 12. What I find strange is that the only reason the foster parents suspected this was due to her height. Maybe there were more reasons and they just didn't get put into print. As a female who got sucker punched by puberty starting at age 9 and is also above average height for an American, I don't think her height alone is all that odd. For a 12-year-old, I do find her height interesting, though. The average height of a Chinese female is 5'2". I'm not saying her being above average height is any way connected to her being missing, but if she was brought here and expected to, quote, work off her debt to the smuggler, her height may have made her worth more.
Yep.
Speaking about her in these terms are disgusting, I know, but unfortunately, these types of things are factors in which girls get chosen. Hold up.
Yeah.
Remember Amber IS?
Yeah, that was what that reminded me of.
They were hella tall too.
Yeah.
So much so that it was made note of.
I know.
That's crazy.
Yep.
I had no idea height was such a factor in these kind of, I don't know. Worth more how? As like a sex slave? As what?
Like how much people are willing to pay.
No, I know, but pay for what? For her to be a sex slave? For her to...
Yeah.
Okay. Number 3, I agree 100% that sending her to the doctor alone is very strange for a number of reasons. What?
No, I was just saying, yeah. Like, You know, we didn't say that specifically, but we were like, what did her parents have to say about this? She's just alone this one specific day to go home without her foster sister when all the other days she was. I don't know. Like, that's just weird to me.
Okay, so my thing about that is I think it's common, or it was common for, I don't think it's that weird. Like, let's say your parents work until 5. If they work 9 to 5s and, you know, it is what it is, kids can come home from school. Do you think it's weird that she was going to the doctor by herself or that she was coming home alone? I mean, I know the thing about the foster sister is weird.
Right.
But we don't know the details. Like maybe her foster sisters didn't always ride home. Maybe they had extracurriculars or something. I have no idea.
Yeah.
See, that's another question mark.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, definitely that. The weird part is it sounded like normally she would usually have one foster sister accompanying her, you know, going home. But on this specific day, she was just by herself. So I think that was a little weird to me. The other weird part is, like, yes, I understand that maybe back in the day it wasn't as weird for parents to, I mean, no, I don't think so at all. Like, I feel like a kid, when you have to go to the doctor, don't you have to have a parent with you?
I don't know that you have to, but
especially for someone who doesn't, like, was her translator going to go with her?
That's a good point.
Like, that's what's weird to me, because it's like, well, okay, they know she can't really speak English at the time. She, you know, she was in the States for just like 6 weeks or something at that point. So how would that have made any sense?
Yeah, that's true.
And like, it just doesn't make sense because, you know, for someone who comes off as being pretty thoughtful, where she like printed out this, where the foster mom printed out this sheet of like Chinese phrases and translations and stuff to try to communicate with her, it doesn't seem in line in terms of thoughtfulness for them to just send her to the doctor herself in a cab.
Yeah, unless like the parents were going to meet her there or something.
Yeah, I guess so. But like, you don't have a car? I mean, you know, you don't have to have a car, I guess, you know, like, and that's fine. But I don't know. I just feel like usually in towns like that, you would have a car to get around to places.
Here's another thing. She tells authorities that she's 12.
Right.
Maybe she's afraid to go to the doctor because they're going to know, like, they're going to.
Really is?
Yeah, and I don't know why that was, like, maybe something she didn't want people to know for whatever reason. I read something like maybe she thought she would be treated with more leniency or more, like, what's the word? People would go easy on her because if she was younger. So that could have been, you know, maybe she ran away because of that. Maybe like this was the first time, like, her being in this house with her foster family, and they said, like, we need to get her to the doctor to make sure she's healthy, and she was just like, I don't want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something else.
That's an interesting theory. Yeah.
Anyway, so their final point, this Reddit user says, the smuggler story just sounds like total bullshit from start to finish. Within a week's time, he alleges that strangers give him a tremendous amount of money to take their daughter to America, quote, rather than Yuanxia having to pay off fees later. I don't know where that quote's from.
Yeah, me neither.
If Claharn was just a random dude who agreed to escort their daughter to the U.S., why would there have been any other mention of her having to pay via involuntary servitude? Add that to the other man who paid for the train and plane tickets and the lack of a, quote, aunt. It seems highly probable that Yuanxia was brought here by a smuggling ring, although it seems unlikely that it was, quote, snakeheads. Which, do you know what the snakeheads are?
I think that's what they generally call, like, the bosses of Chinese mafia.
Oh, so it is mafia. I'm asking you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Yeah, like I guess so. I'm not too versed in that, to be honest. I'm just kind of going off the little bit that I do know.
Well, I'm trying to find this where it's mentioned in this Washington. Obviously, we'll put this in the sources. Wang Yuanxia was one of several Chinese nationals who entered the United States illegally at Dulles International Airport in the past 6 months, authorities said. In some of those cases, officials think Asian smugglers known as snakeheads were involved, individuals who deliver illegal immigrants to restaurants or brothels where they are held in virtual servitude to pay off huge smuggling fees. So here's another question about that.
Uh-huh.
They're smuggled over here to work in a brothel to pay off their smuggling fee, or is it more like they want to come here for a better life, so they pay smugglers, and then once they get here, they're forced into this, and then it's like, well, you have to work here to pay off your fee for me smuggling you over here?
Well, I feel like anytime you work with a smuggler, they're going to fuck you over. I mean, it's not like, like they're going to try to get every little bit out of you. So I don't really think that I mean, this is assuming that Yuanxia's parents, or no, Yuanxia's story about her parents paying them a lot of money to get them here is true, because that is her story, right? Not his.
Correct.
According to that story, if that's true, and I mean, why would she lie about that?
The girl was okay. Yeah. So he lies and says she's part of his business.
Right.
Right. However, the girl was unable to communicate with 2 Thai translators at the airport, according to authorities. Eventually, officials summoned a Chinese translator, and Wang Yuanxia said she was from Fuzhou, the capital of Fujian province in southern China. Wang Yuanxia said that she had met Klaharn 7 days earlier and that her parents had paid to have her brought to America, according to court records and law enforcement officials. Okay. So yeah, that's her words.
Right. So she could either be lying or she could be telling the truth. She could be lying because she was threatened by Klaharn, the dude.
Oh, right? Yeah, that's true.
That's a possibility. And it's like, if you don't say that, then you're going to be in much deeper trouble, sort of a thing. Yeah. So that could be, that could be a lie, and that's why she lied, so that she wouldn't be even, be in more trouble. Or she could be telling the truth, and her parents really did pay this dude to have her shipped over here to live with an aunt or whatever. But even that's kind of weird to me now too, because it's like, why would you have some random stranger doing that? Why didn't you go yourself?
Yeah. Or can't you send her yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
Can't she travel herself and have somebody meet her at the airport, like her aunt?
Right, exactly. Because that doesn't make any sense either. So I don't know. Now it's starting to sound more and more like a lie. Maybe
I didn't think of that. Why didn't I think of that? Go ahead.
Maybe she was kidnapped and Klaharn was threatening her. And it's like, if we get caught by officials, you have to say this kind of a thing.
Yeah, if they say yes.
Right.
Now that you mention that, that makes the most sense to me, because...
Okay, hold on, back up. But now I'm thinking, well, if that were the case, then why would he tell the officials that he owns a silk company and she's the manager of it? That doesn't make sense either.
Well, because he thought they could get away with that until they tried talking to her in Thai and she couldn't speak to them.
Oh,
and because she was using a Thai passport and was trying to, he was trying to pass her off as his niece.
Right. But if that were the case, why would he threaten her? Okay. Assuming that he's well, maybe they won't talk to her because, they'll assume that she's Thai or because she's a kid, then they won't try to talk to her. Then why would he threaten her anyway? Because then they would have 2 separate stories.
Yes, excuse me. This is my manager in my silk business. He does the accounting and finances. And yes, I know you get lattes for me sometimes too. Yes, you do. Please don't send us away. He's legitimate, I promise. Here's his Thai passport.
He's just meowing.
Anyway, not to make light of an obviously tragic situation. I think now that we're talking through this out loud, I think that's what happened. I think if I had to guess that she was coerced to say this.
Yeah. Because it doesn't, you're right. Like talking out loud, it's like, yeah, like why? But then their stories don't match. Why would he say that she's the manager of his silk company, and then she says that her parents paid him to get her here? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, because remember though, he said that she was the manager of this company before she was caught. He's like, oh yeah, we're two Thai people. She's my niece and she works with me. And he's Thai. But then they start talking to them and they realize this girl can't speak Thai. Then they're busted.
Right.
So now they need to come clean. It could still be true that he said, okay, here's our cover. I am your uncle and you work for me.
Mm-hmm.
If something happens, you better not say anything about, like, you better say this. This is what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes and no. I think I get that, but it's also like, so it's kind of like, well, they're busted anyway because she can't speak Thai. So now she just makes up another lie that her parents sent her here.
It may not be that she made it up just then, like off the top of her head. It could be that, like you said before, like they could have come up with that.
Well, if they could have come up with that, then he would have stuck to that story and not, she's my niece. And
because he's still smuggling her illegally.
Yes. None of that makes any sense.
No. It does, because before that, it was just two people traveling together. Mm-hmm. She had a Thai passport. He had a Thai passport. Mm-hmm. He was probably hoping that they would buy his story. Here's two passports. Here's two people coming in. Okay, what's your reason for being here? Oh, you guys are in a business. Okay, here's your passports, whatever. Then they start realizing their suspicions are raised when she can't speak Thai.
Right.
Then it's like, oh, okay, we figure out, okay, you're from China. Okay, so now you have some explaining to do. What's going on now? Right. Now she's forced. They can't stick to the niece uncle story anymore because that's obviously crap. So then she says, okay, yeah, I'm from China, but this is the reason. I don't know.
I guess that makes sense because it's kind of like if he had threatened her before, then she's trying to save his ass so that she's not.
Or trying to save her own ass. Well, trying to save herself, like you said, if he threatened her.
Right.
Like he could have said, who knows?
Right.
Like, you better say this. If you say anything else, I will come after you. I don't know.
Yeah. That's interesting.
But then she did go on to tell her foster family.
Right.
I just don't get it. Somebody should be able to verify this aunt and her existence. If that was what she told her foster family, like, my parents and I argued and they said they sent me to live with my aunt. Okay, well, who's your aunt? Where's your aunt?
Right.
What did your aunt do when you didn't show up?
Right.
Like, why wasn't she contacted? Why wasn't she at any of your court proceedings being like, yeah, this is my niece and whatever? I don't know if she would have had any legal, like, right or to custody of her, but I don't know, man.
Well, you know what? Okay, so if this were the case, if she really were kidnapped and then this whole stuff, it could very well be that she just ran away because she didn't want to have to deal with that going back, because she doesn't know what awaits her going back. If the whole thing with her parents are not true.
That's very okay, but how about this though? If that's true, how do you stay missing for 24 years? Could
Because
she
she
have?
doesn't want to be deported.
No, I know why, but I'm saying how. How could you pull that off? I guess you can find some people that would be willing to maybe pay you under the table.
Yeah.
But is she smart enough to give a fake name? And like,
Probably.
because isn't it, I mean, it would be pretty hard to go missing, don't you think? Like,
I do think so. I do think it's hard to go missing, especially when you're, I mean, not to be ageist, but especially when you're that young, I would think, in a foreign country and you don't know the language.
she could have somehow traveled to somewhere and met some people that spoke Mandarin and that helped her.
And then
Not to be stereotypical or anything, but maybe she went to, maybe she really, I don't mean any offense by this, but like maybe she went to some restaurant and was like, I'll work for you. I don't want to get deported. I don't know.
I mean, I don't think that that's offensive at all, because I mean, the truth is that she doesn't know English, or she didn't know English at the time that she was missing. Like that's not, you know.
I just mean not to assume that all Asian people own a restaurant or that they, are here illegally. I just mean, could she have gone to somebody somewhere that would, maybe their immigration status was not totally legal. And so they were more willing to like help her out. Like, here's a fellow Chinese girl and we want to help her and she's lost in this country. She could have said anything. Like, I'm from an abusive family. Who knows? Or people are like out to get me and I want to like disappear. I don't know.
I do have to say though that yeah, that's possible. But I do have to say though that from my experience, Chinese people don't really want to help random people, not because they're like mean, but because they don't want trouble on themselves. So they don't know. Yeah. Not really very willing to do that.
So that's fair. Yeah, I guess if I'm picking, I think the more I'm thinking about this, she may have been abducted. I don't know how they would have known where she's at, but
yeah, that's the thing. I don't really.
Such a bizarre story, isn't it?
Yes.
At this point, I don't know. Is she alive? Is she not?
I think she's alive.
I kind of lean towards that too.
Yeah, I kind of think she is alive, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know her quality of life.
Right.
In that way, but
right.
I don't know why, but I do think she's alive.
I feel that too. Not that I have some sort of sixth sense or something about it, but I just feel like she could be alive.
Yeah, same here. And I mean, if she is alive, I hope that we'll be able to figure out like how to help her if she's in any kind of danger or bad situation.
One minute and 43 seconds is dedicated to my number one fan. Thanks, Dad. I love you and I miss you. This podcast has been approved by Skipper the Cat. Right, Skippy?